The wind swept across the barren plains of Orion, seven like a mournful chorus, its eerie song carrying secrets of a forgotten era. Under a vast, tumultuous sky, the land appeared both desolate and strangely beautiful, a landscape sculpted by time, where every gust whispered tales of past glory and lingering sorrow. In the midst of this unforgiving terrain stood the remnants of a once thriving human colony. Dilapidated biodomes, their once gleaming exteriors now pockmarked by the ravages of relentless storms, punctuated the horizon like silent sentinels. Vines crept over their surfaces, reclaiming the structures as nature's own, while the scars of human ambition and hope were etched into every weathered panel and cracked window. Dr. Alara Nova moved deliberately among these relics, her every step a measured testament to the weight of history she carried. At 35, her eyes shone with a resolute brightness, reflecting both the determination of a leader and the inquisitive spark of an unyielding scholar. Clad in a weathered coat that had seen more battles against nature than most, she paused occasionally to touch the cool surface of an old archive terminal or to trace the faded mural that once celebrated humanity's resilience. The relics around her, though silent, spoke volumes, a tapestry of human endeavor, sacrifice, and the unquenchable thirst for survival. As the wind danced around her, it seemed to whisper directly to Alara, coaxing her memories of a world that had long since vanished. She recalled the desperate exodus from Earth, the arduous journey through uncharted space, and the myriad sacrifices made in the name of hope. With every whisper of the wind, a fragment of that lost civilization resonated, urging her to preserve the legacy of those who had dared to dream beyond the confines of a dying planet. Above, dark clouds gathered, hinting at an imminent storm that mirrored the turmoil within the colony's soul. The natural world of Orion, 7 was a stark reminder of nature's dominion, an ever-present force that both nurtured and challenged the fragile constructs of human habitation. Yet within this challenging environment, there was an undeniable beauty, a testament to endurance and the delicate balance between desolation and rebirth. In this liminal space, caught between the echoes of what once was and the fragile promise of what might be, Alara Nova silently vowed to honor the memory of her people. With her heart pounding in tune with the rhythmic gusts of wind, she embraced the solitude and majesty of Orion 7, determined to unravel the mysteries that lay buried beneath layers of dust, regret, and time. The silence of Orion 7 was punctuated by the distant hum of memories, whispers of an age when humanity still thrived. In the cool embrace of dusk, as twilight spilled over the alien plains, Alara Nova wandered through the colony's abandoned corridors, where every creaking metal beam and faded mural bore the weight of history. Here, the relics of a bygone era came alive, each one a silent witness to the trials and triumphs of those who had dared to leave Earth behind. Within the colony's central archive, a cavernous hall lined with dusty holoscreens and cracked data pads, the ghosts of the past reached out to her. One screen, its image barely discernible, flickered to life as Alara's fingertips brushed against its surface. Suddenly, the cold blue light transformed into vivid scenes. Bustling streets on a once vibrant Earth, desperate faces filled with hope and fear, and the brave souls who had embarked on the perilous journey across the stars. These echoes of a world long lost painted a tapestry of struggle and resilience, capturing both the glory and the grief of humanity's exodus. Alara paused before a large, weathered mural that depicted the monumental leap into space. A scene of interstellar ships soaring towards the heavens, their luminous trails a beacon of escape from a dying planet. The mural, though worn by time and neglect, still pulsed with the fervor of a moment when humanity had united under a single, audacious dream. In that image, she saw reflections of her own determination and the relentless spirit of those who had given everything for the chance at rebirth. As the holographic images danced before her eyes, memories unfurled like ancient scrolls. She recalled the hurried goodbyes, the tear-streaked faces of loved ones left behind, and the solemn promises made under the shadow of impending doom. The exodus was more than a mere escape. It was a collective leap of faith, a desperate gamble against extinction. Every fragment of data, every relic of the past, echoed with the voices of those who had dared to hope, even in the face of inevitable loss. In this sacred space, filled with remnants of joy and sorrow, the past seemed to blend with the present. The once lively laughter of children playing among the makeshift labs, the determined murmurs of engineers racing against time, and the quiet prayers whispered in forgotten corners. All these fragments of memory converged to form a powerful, living mosaic. It was a reminder that even amidst decay and desolation, the spirit of humanity endured, woven into the very fabric of Orion 7. Embracing the bittersweet weight of these echoes, Alara steeled herself. Each memory was a lesson, a reminder of both the cost of survival and the boundless potential of human ingenuity. As the twilight deepened into night, she vowed to honor the legacy of those who had come before her, to carry forward their dreams in the face of an uncertain future. In the interplay of shadow and light, the colony's past and present merged, igniting within her a resolve as enduring as the stars above. Far above the storm-laden skies of Orion 7, a constellation of alien warships emerged from the void, a silent armada whose sleek, angular designs betrayed no hint of their purpose. The Zephorian fleet, long believed to be engaged in ceaseless patrols across the galaxy, now converged upon the forgotten outpost with an intensity that sent ripples of tension through the interstellar ether. On board the flagship, Commander Railvek's gaze was fixed on a vast, holographic display mapping the stars. His elongated fingers traced the route the fleet had taken, a trajectory that seemed almost fated to intercept this isolated bastion of humanity. The cold, calculated precision of his movements belied the tumult that churned within him. For years, he had dutifully executed orders, believing in the necessity of his mission. Yet, as he reviewed the ancient directive that now compelled him to eradicate any trace of human survival, a deep, gnawing uncertainty began to unravel the fabric of his resolve. In the command center, dim red lights pulsed in synchrony with the steady thrum of alien engines. The ambient hum of machinery was punctuated by terse communications in a language both alien and strangely rhythmic. Amid these signals, a subtle but unmistakable undercurrent of reluctance resonated in Railvek's mind, a whisper of doubt that questioned the morality behind his orders. As he studied the visual feed of the human colony, a scattering of biodomes clinging to existence like fragile memories on a desolate canvas, he could not shake the haunting vision of the lost souls whose dreams had converged here against all cosmic odds. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Dr. Alara Nova sensed an unsettling shift in the wind. The natural melody of Orion 7, which had so far sung a dirge of solitude and decay, now carried a new, discordant note. The colony's inhabitants, accustomed to the slow, relentless march of time, found themselves gripped by a sudden awareness. They were not as hidden as they had once believed. Eyes turned skyward, and hearts quickened as distant shadows began to manifest against the horizon, a forewarning of an approaching storm, not of nature, but of interstellar consequence. The first crackle of communication from the alien fleet reached the colony's modest command hub with a mix of static and urgency. Emergency protocols, long dormant, were hastily activated. Alara's voice, steady despite the surge of adrenaline, filled the room as she directed her team to prepare for an encounter that could redefine their very existence. Every keystroke and whispered command resonated with the gravity of their predicament. The discovery of humanity's last refuge had not come as an act of benevolence, but as the harbinger of potential conflict. As the fleet drew closer, the cosmos seemed to hold its breath. In the silent interstice between duty and destiny, the two forces, human and Zephorian, braced for the inevitable collision of ideals and lives. The unveiling was complete. The colony was no longer a secret relic adrift in time. It had become the focal point of an unfolding saga, where the clash of ancient orders and emergent doubts would forge a new chapter in the annals of the cosmos. In that charged moment, as both sides prepared to face each other across the void, the delicate balance between aggression and diplomacy teetered on the brink. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge not only the mandates of a distant authority, but the very essence of what it meant to fight for survival. and for the possibility of redemption. In the wake of the fleet's ominous approach, the atmosphere in the colony shifted from resigned solitude to a state of acute alertness. Within the central command hub, tension crackled like static in the air as Dr. Ilara Nova gathered her closest advisors. The room, illuminated by the pale glow of emergency holoscreens, buzzed with whispered strategies and unspoken fears. The sudden appearance of the Zephyrian fleet had transformed a quiet outpost into the epicenter of an interstellar standoff. Outside, the alien vessels loomed like dark sentinels against the shifting canvas of Orion 7's stormy skies. Their angular forms, slick with the sheen of advanced technology, contrasted starkly with the organic decay of the human structures below. Every moment felt drawn out, as if the universe itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what might unfold. In that charged silence, the first formal communication crackled to life, a blend of unfamiliar syllables and measured tones that signaled the arrival of Zephyrian emissaries. A delegation of Zephyrian officers, led by a dignified yet inscrutable figure, descended onto the colony's landing pad. The platform, once a quiet space of routine logistics, was transformed into a stage for this first delicate encounter. The emissaries moved with an elegance that belied the underlying gravity of their mission, their presence a visual reminder of the formidable power they wielded. With cautious steps and subtle nods, they approached the human leaders, their posture a blend of military discipline and diplomatic decorum. As the two groups came face to face, a palpable tension permeated the clearing. Dr. Nova stepped forward, her voice clear and resonant despite the layers of apprehension. "We are the keepers of humanity's legacy," she declared, her words imbued with both defiance and a plea for understanding. Her eyes, unwavering and resolute, sought to bridge the yawning gap between the species, a silent entreaty for compassion amid the cold dictates of duty. In response, the Zephyrian emissary's voice emerged, measured, calm, yet edged with the unmistakable weight of centuries of edicts. "We are duty-bound to follow orders, to preserve the greater balance of the cosmos," the emissary intoned, each word meticulously chosen. However, behind the polished cadence, a subtle tremor of uncertainty hinted at the inner conflict that plagued even the most loyal of his kind. The dialogue that ensued was a dance of cautious words and guarded gestures. Each sentence served as a veiled probe into the motivations of the other, each pause pregnant with unspoken histories and the shared burden of past decisions. The human and Zephyrian representatives circled one another like wary adversaries, their conversation threading between demands and tentative offers of peace. The exchange was fraught with the dual edges of diplomacy, where the promise of reconciliation mingled with the threat of annihilation. Amid the formalities, it was the subtext that revealed the true nature of the encounter. Small nods, fleeting glances, and the measured lowering of weapons spoke of a mutual recognition. Both sides were ensnared by the consequences of ancient decrees and the relentless march of fate. In that intricate interplay, the dialogue transcended mere protocol and touched upon the universal language of regret and the desperate yearning for redemption. As negotiations wore on, the colony's advisors and the Zephyrian officers began to share fragments of their individual stories, of loss, sacrifice, and the heavy toll of duty. These moments, brief and luminous, illuminated the possibility that beneath the veneer of orders and defenses lay a common ground. It was as if the very act of speaking honestly began to dissolve the rigid barriers erected by centuries of mistrust. Yet, despite these flickers of shared sentiment, the air remained thick with uncertainty. The path to genuine reconciliation was obscured by the lingering shadows of past transgressions and the overwhelming mandate that had brought the fleet to Orion 7. The delicate balance of diplomatic tensions hung precariously, a tightrope stretched over a chasm of existential risk. In that defining moment of dialogue, where words were both shields and bridges, the fate of the colony and the legacy of two species teetered on a knife edge. The stage was set for further revelations, as each faction grappled with the conflicting demands of honor, duty, and the unyielding call for mercy. In the hushed, ruined corridors of an abandoned communications outpost, a relic of a once vibrant era, The stage was set for a meeting that would change the course of destiny. The air was heavy with dust and memories, each particle a silent witness to lost civilizations. Here, amid crumbling concrete and tangled vines reclaiming the structure, Dr. Alara Nova and Commander Railvek were destined to face one another in a confrontation that transcended the boundaries of duty and defiance. Alara stepped into the dimly lit hall, her gaze fixed on the figure waiting at the far end. The corridor's fractured light caught the silver gleam of the Zephorian uniform and the subtle strain that marred Railvek's typically impassive expression. Every step she took resonated with the weight of her responsibilities, both as a guardian of humanity's legacy and as a woman determined to seek truth amidst the lies of ancient edicts. Commander Railvek, Alara began, her voice steady yet imbued with an undercurrent of urgency. We stand here not as enemies, but as bearers of burdens we did not choose. Her words, though measured, carried the raw intensity of a soul fighting to bridge the divide between two worlds. Every command, every order, has led us to this very moment. But must our fate be sealed by the mistakes of our past? Railvek's eyes, dark and contemplative, met hers with a look that was equal parts resolve and regret. Dr. Nova, he replied, his tone laced with the gravity of countless sacrifices. I have followed orders for centuries. Yet, in each execution, I have felt the chill of remorse. The edicts were never meant to be instruments of annihilation, but safeguards for a balance I no longer recognize. His voice, soft and unyielding, carried the timbre of a man torn between loyalty and the dawning horror of irreversible decisions. Their conversation swirled around them like the dust motes in the weak sunlight filtering through shattered windows. Alara moved closer, her expression earnest. Our people, our histories, they were built on hope, on dreams of reaching beyond the stars. To obliterate us now, to extinguish that light, would be to deny every sacrifice that brought us here. Silence fell as Railvek considered her words. The distant echo of a collapsing structure punctuated the quiet, a reminder of the impermanence of all things. I have seen the consequences of rigid obedience, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I have witnessed the suffering inflicted in the name of order. And now, I question whether my actions are any different from the very destruction they were meant to prevent. In that fraught pause, the dichotomy of their existences crystallized. Here were two beings, one human, one alien, bound by an intricate tapestry of cosmic duty and personal despair. Their dialogue wove through memories of glory and shadows of regret, each sentence peeling back layers of hardened resolve to reveal vulnerability and a shared yearning for redemption. As the conversation deepened, the abandoned outpost itself seemed to lean in, as if the walls, scarred by time, absorbed every word and emotion. If we do not choose another path, Alara said softly, we condemn both our peoples to an endless cycle of conflict and sorrow. Her eyes shone with a light that was both defiant and hopeful, a beacon amid the darkness of their shared predicament. Railvek's fingers brushed against the cold metal of a long-forgotten control panel, a silent gesture of contemplation. Perhaps it is time to consider that survival might depend on understanding rather than destruction. I stand at a precipice, torn between duty and the desire to atone. His admission resonated deeply within the cavernous space, stirring echoes of long-suppressed remorse. In that charged moment, as the first fragile tendrils of trust began to take root in the midst of despair, the two adversaries recognized the common ground beneath their conflicting orders. Their confrontation was no longer a clash of commands. It had transformed into a turning point, where the possibility of reconciliation shimmered against the backdrop of a once-inevitable war. The corridor bore silent witness to their exchange, every crumbling stone and fading mural a testament to the birth of a tentative hope. And so, amidst the ruins of the past, a promise was made. A promise that from the ashes of old enmities, a new path toward redemption might yet emerge. In the aftermath of the charged confrontation, a fragile calm settled over Orion, 7, as if the planet itself exhaled a long-held breath. Within the colony's fortified command center, the once absolute barriers of fear and suspicion began to crumble. The corridors that had echoed with the harsh rhetoric of duty now resonated with tentative murmurs of reconciliation. Dr. Ilara Nova, with her unwavering resolve, led the assembly of her closest advisors and trusted engineers, determined to forge a path away from the precipice of annihilation. Late into the night, the colony's meeting hall was illuminated not by the harsh glare of emergency lights, but by the soft, steady glow of hope. Here, discussions took on a nuanced tone, a mosaic of strategic necessity intertwined with the raw desire for redemption. Blueprints of the colony's intricate defenses lay scattered across tables, mingling with maps of the alien fleet's known trajectories. But amidst the tactical details, it was the human element that dominated the conversation, a shared yearning to break the chains of centuries-old edicts and to embrace an uncertain, yet promising future. Across the vast expanse of space, on the Zephyrian flagship, Commander Railvek found himself wrestling with inner demons in the solitude of his private quarters. The weight of rigid command, once his only constant companion, had become a shackle that tethered him to a past defined by unquestioning obedience. In quiet moments, he replayed the echoes of his conversation with Ilara, a dialogue that had shattered his long-held certainties. His thoughts, once as precise as the interstellar maps that guided his fleet, now meandered through the tangled corridors of regret and hope. With each memory of distant worlds and lost souls, he realized that the path to true duty lay not in destruction, but in understanding. A delicate bridge of communications soon emerged between the two factions. Through a series of painstakingly honest transmissions, leaders from the human colony and Zephyrian officers began to share their personal stories of loss and the burdens they bore. The messages, laced with vulnerability, painted a portrait of two disparate peoples bound by common grief. In one transmission, a Zephyrian officer recounted the sorrow of witnessing the irreversible consequences of orders executed without question. In another, a human engineer revealed the bittersweet memory of a family torn apart by the chaos of interstellar exodus. These narratives, spoken in halting tones yet full of resolute sincerity, were the first threads of a tapestry woven from empathy. On Orion 7's surface, small acts of defiance against the long-held mandates began to take shape. The colony's community, once paralyzed by the fear of a looming enemy, rallied around the idea of a joint reconstruction project, a symbol of their shared destiny. Engineers from the colony, with their calloused hands and determined eyes, worked alongside lower-ranking Zephyrian technicians who, despite the language barriers, communicated through gestures and shared expressions of wonder at the possibilities of collaboration. As days melted into nights, the boundaries of mistrust slowly dissolved. In a quiet courtyard beneath a patchwork of fading murals and newly erected banners of unity, a group of humans and Zephyrians gathered around a makeshift fire. The glow of the flames cast dancing shadows on faces etched with both scars and hope. In that humble moment, old chains of suspicion were visibly broken, replaced by the tentative bonds of mutual respect. Conversations flowed freely, an exchange of hopes, regrets, and dreams for a future unburdened by the sins of the past. In these interludes, Ilara Nova and Railvek emerged as unlikely ambassadors of change. Their earlier confrontation had been the spark that ignited this transformative dialogue. Now, each took deliberate steps to solidify the fragile peace. Ilara meticulously documented every agreement and every promise made, while Railvek worked to convince his superiors that a different path was not only possible but necessary for the survival of both species. The breaking of these chains was not marked by grand declarations or sweeping reforms, but by countless small, resolute acts: a shared meal under the alien sky, a collaborative repair of a critical communications array, a whispered conversation under the stars. Each act, though seemingly insignificant on its own, added up to a powerful testament to the resilience of hope and the human and alien spirit. In that delicate balance between duty and desire, the colony began to realize that true strength lay in the willingness to re-examine the past, to question long-held beliefs, and to step forward into an uncertain future with hearts unburdened by regret. And as the alien winds continued their eternal dance across the plains of Orion 7, a new chapter of potential unfolded, a promise that perhaps, in the breaking of old chains, the seeds of redemption could finally take root. In the cool, pre-dawn hours on Orion 7, as the first hints of light broke the endless night, a quiet transformation unfolded among the colony's inhabitants and their Zephyrian counterparts. In a secluded courtyard fringed by towering, ancient biodomes and freshly constructed meeting pavilions, both species gathered in a fragile communion of shared sorrow and tentative hope. Here, under the waning stars and the gentle hum of renewed machinery, human engineers, medics, and community leaders sat side by side with Zephyrian technicians and junior officers. A crackling fire, its warm glow defying the chill of a world so far removed from Earth, became the center of a makeshift gathering. The flames cast flickering shadows on faces marked by the hardships of survival, but more importantly, on eyes that now reflected the weight of regret and the possibility of forgiveness. Alara Nova, standing quietly at the edge of the circle, observed the exchange of stories with a mixture of compassion and determination. As soft voices began to weave personal narratives into the tapestry of the night, a young human engineer spoke of his lost family, a tender recollection of laughter now silenced by the ravages of a desperate past. His voice trembled as he recounted moments of joy amid calamity, the sound of his words mingling with the whispers of the wind. Across from him, a Zephyrian junior officer, his countenance unusually gentle for one bred in the rigid discipline of his kind, shared the tale of a mentor who had once questioned the cruelty of their directives. His story, marked by the subtle accent of remorse and wistful longing, resonated deeply with those listening. The shared vulnerability in that moment was palpable, as if the barriers of duty and fear were dissolving before the raw, honest accounts of personal loss and regret. As the night deepened, dialogues emerged that were as delicate as they were powerful. Small groups formed around clusters of softly glowing hollow lanterns, where language, both human and Zephyrian, transcended its usual confines through gestures, expressions, and the universal cadence of emotion. Laughter, tentative at first, began to punctuate the air, not as a dismissal of past pain, but as a gentle acknowledgement of life's enduring resilience. Alara moved among the clusters, her presence both reassuring and inspiring. She listened intently, absorbing every whispered confession of regret and every heartfelt apology. In a particularly moving exchange, a seasoned human nurse and a young Zephyrian technician discussed the futility of endless retribution and the need for healing. A conversation laden with pauses as each sought the right words to bridge centuries of misunderstanding. Amid the soft murmur of voices and the low crackle of the fire, a silent agreement began to form. The bonds of remorse, once isolated to individual hearts, were now weaving together into a shared narrative of redemption. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the future seemed less dictated by the relentless march of orders and more by the collective desire to mend what had been broken. In that delicate, transformative moment, it was clear that reconciliation would not come from grand decrees or sweeping changes, but from the intimate, honest sharing of personal pain and hope. Each story, each tear and smile, became a stitch in a new fabric of unity, one that promised that even in a universe marked by isolation and ancient conflict, compassion could be the catalyst for a fresh beginning. As the gathering slowly dispersed with the arrival of a soft, silver dawn, the bonds forged in the quiet hours of remorse lingered like a benediction over the colony. They were a promise that, despite the scars of a turbulent past, the future might yet be written in a language of understanding, a language that transcended the boundaries of species and duty. As the first rays of a gentle, alien sunrise stretched across the rugged plains of Orion 7, the once fractured colony stirred with the promise of renewal. The air, crisp with the scent of hope and lingering night, carried murmurs of a new beginning. In a grand assembly held in the colony's rejuvenated central dome, its walls now adorned with both ancient murals and freshly painted symbols of unity, leaders from both species convened to mark the turning of a page in their shared history. Dr. Alara Nova stood at the forefront, her gaze sweeping over a sea of faces, human and Zephyrian alike, united in their quest for a future that transcended the sins of the past. The atmosphere was electric with cautious optimism. Around her, the echoes of whispered apologies and newly forged bonds resonated as the foundation for a delicate peace. Plans were unveiled. Joint initiatives to restore the crumbling infrastructure, shared scientific endeavors to unlock the mysteries of the planet, and cultural exchanges designed to bridge the gap between two worlds that had long lived in isolation. On a raised platform, Commander Railvek addressed the gathering in his resonant, measured tones, a voice that, once a herald of cold orders, now carried the timbre of repentance and resolve. Today, we stand together not as the sum of our past transgressions, but as architects of our future, he proclaimed, his words weaving through the assembly with a palpable sincerity. Let this be the moment where we turn our shared regrets into the seeds of reconciliation and progress. The crowd, wrapped in the gravity of the moment, burst into subdued applause, a sound that, like the breaking of dawn, heralded the end of an era defined by conflict and the beginning of one marked by hope and collaboration. In that instant, the barren fields of Orion, seven transformed into a canvas upon which the collective dreams of two disparate peoples could be repainted in strokes of unity and determination. As the ceremony drew to a close, Alara and Railvek exchanged a final, understanding glance, a silent pact that their journey, fraught with the scars of ancient edicts and unyielding duty, had finally led to this singular moment of clarity. In the days that followed, as humans and Zephyrians labored side by side under the vast, welcoming sky, a tangible sense of community blossomed where once there had been only isolation and mistrust. Together, they began the painstaking work of rebuilding, not merely the physical structures of a long-forgotten colony, but the intangible bridges of empathy and shared responsibility. Each repaired wall, each cooperative endeavor, and every heartfelt conversation served as a testament to the transformative power of redemption. With every passing day, the narrative of Orion 7 shifted from one of inevitable conflict to that of emergent hope, where the lessons of the past were honored and the possibilities of the future embraced. In the twilight of that transformative era, the colony, now a beacon of newfound unity, stood as a living monument to the resilience of the human spirit and the boundless capacity for change, even across the vast divides of species and destiny. The horizon stretched before them, infinite and inviting, a reminder that every ending bears within it the seed of a new beginning.